Today's episode of the Finance Frontier podcast is with guest Bill Hines. In this episode, we talk about Bill's blue-collar upbringing, how he first learned about personal finance, and his experience in the military. Bill has been passionate about financial independence since before the FIRE movement even existed. He has a really interesting perspective, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Bill, thanks for joining the podcast today. First, I want to ask you, what inspired you to become a financial advisor?
Well, I became inspired to do this kind of work. I think the first time I really remember thinking about it was when I was in high school, senior year, right? You've got that relaxed schedule. You've already covered most of the required stuff. And I took home ec. And as a lot of seniors did, right? Easy credits, sit there learning how to fry eggs and make brownies. And we covered balancing the checkbook. And I just had this epiphany that this was the solution to the problem I was seeing in my home, where my mom was sitting there with a kitchen table scattered with bills, and I knew there was financial stress. I came from a blue-collar family, and I just thought it was the greatest thing, and I couldn't wait to get home and show her that. So in a sense, she became my first client, trying to show her how to get her arms around this, disorganized mess that was our own personal finances at the time. And then I went into the military at a high school, blue collar family, didn't have really options for college then. And I was still really enamored with this whole thing. So I ended up kind of teaching the other guys in the barracks with me about personal finances and telling them, look, that car dealer outside the base, and there were a whole bunch of them that were trying to get everybody to buy the new Mustangs and muscle cars. They're going to rip you off, right? They're going to get you to spend all your money, your whole limited paycheck on these cars. You're not going to be able to have any fun. So that's really where the beginnings of this came from, as far as I'm concerned. It's always been a lifelong passion. I'm a numbers guy. I have that aptitude as kind of wired for it. So it just fit in well with my my natural DNA, I guess.
To have that experience in high school at such a young age is so important, and it sounds like it really had a big impact on you. Did you have mentors who also helped teach you, or were you more so self-taught?
Yeah, very self-taught. Obviously, my early times were before the internet, so I've always been a voracious reader, and I got clued in early to some of the early resources around this because I was kind of fascinated by the whole thing. I came from an era where, like Jack Bogle said in the beginning, we came from a blue collar family, and he said, this investing stuff is only for wealthy people. Where's the investing stuff for working people? And he started Vanguard and invented index funds and low cost investing. So I was reading books, I was always at the library, and then I subscribed to way back the Motley Fool newsletters and started learning that way. So that's really the fundamentals of how I got involved in this. I did take, the college courses and things. I didn't major in finance. I got fascinated with computer science, which was a new and burgeoning thing back then. But I did take the finance courses because I was so enamored with the subject.
Wow, it's such an interesting background, and I think the other thing that I'm curious about is, your experience teaching other guys in the barracks when you were in the military about the importance of finance, because, like you said, there's so many predatory practices out there where lenders basically try to prey on young enlistees. So could you talk a little bit about, how you learned as an enlistee and what you taught other young guys in the barracks?
Yeah, it's I was when I was a kid, read a lot of comic books. I was a big superhero fan, and I kind of saw myself as a superhero in that vein. I always had this altruistic sense just from reading and consuming so much of that stuff, right? The Batman and Spider-Man and everything. And I was, kind of the 90-pound weakling when I was a little kid. I grew later, but I saw this as my way to be a superhero and help people. So, and this thing against evil, right? And that's what I saw those predatory folks as being, right? It's just evil, trying to take advantage of people who went into the service to serve their time. And I was always trying to protect people from that sort of thing. And even today, right, that same nature persists when I see people getting sucked into horrible things like really bad annuities. Not all annuities are bad, but a lot of them are really bad. Or advisors that convince people to take their annuities and place them under their advisement. So now not only are they getting charged these egregious fees inside the annuities, the advisor has pulled that into the portfolio and is charging another 1% on top of that. A lot of the insurance stuff out there and the free steak dinner type thing. So, I find myself wanting to run around and warn everybody about it. So, back in the day with the barracks, it was simpler. There weren't as many predators out there. But I did look twice when I crossed the street because I was waiting for one of those car dealers to come and mow me down. It's costing them a lot of money, I think, right?
Yeah, wow. It sounds like you've of course really seen the industry change a lot over time as well. And also, you kind of talk about how you wanted to learn about the things that you should be doing, but also simultaneously you're learning about all the negative things that happen, like getting sold into an annuity product or an advisor putting you in the wrong kind of fund. So I'm just curious, like, do you think the industry is moving in the right direction over time, and that things are getting better? There's more options available for the average investor, or do you think it's moving in the wrong direction?
It's always an ebb and flow, right? We see progress and then we see the progress reversed. Look at what's just happened recently, right? We saw these bank failures. Like, what is this, 1930? And why? Because we backed off on a lot of the regulations that allow us to make sure these banks are solid. And what happens right away? They run with that and they start playing fast and loose with the money they're supposed to have. They don't have the reserves and they fail, right? It's happening in the annuity space. A lot of the, people who bought annuities from good, solid, well-known companies like Prudential that have been around for hundreds of years, and they bought that annuity because they trust the rock, right? Okay, I know annuities are sketchy, but hey, this is Prudential, they're going to be around, right? Well, Prudential just sold off a massive part of their annuity business to some private equity firm offshore, and they don't have to abide by the U.S. regulations we have in place to keep those annuities sound, like the stringent accounting regulations and the oversight and the compliance and the regulatory stuff. They're in Bermuda. They can do whatever they want. So what's going to happen when these people need that annuity money in 10 years? Is this offshore company, because they played fast and loose, going to be gone now? The CEOs, the executives paid themselves huge salaries and then said, whoops, we're bankrupt. We're sorry about that. I mean, unlike savings accounts, with FDIC insurance and good investment accounts or brokerage with SIPC protection, there's no protection on these. The company fails, you get in line with all the other bankruptcy creditors. So, to answer your question, it's always an ebb and flow. We see terms that people used to be able to rely on and were trained to rely on, like fiduciary and fee only. The industry has been allowed to corrupt those terms. Now we've got these offshoots, fee-based, fee offset, and people see that fee there and they think, oh yeah, that's that safe thing. But those aren't safe. Fee-based, fee offset means they're earning commission. The fiduciary standard has been corrupted now because broker-dealers don't necessarily have to follow it. So to me, it's that constant fight, good versus evil. But the good news is that people do have all the abilities right now, all the tools in place to do this right, if they can just get the right guidance and learn the right stuff. So that to me is a blessing, where before we didn't have that stuff. We have lots of options now to do it right. It's just a matter of education.
Absolutely, you're right, and just making people aware that options like Emancipare are available. So appreciate you explaining that. Bill, while you were talking about that, it just made me think that, frankly, I don't even have a very good understanding of annuities, and I'm sure that's true of most people in our audience. So would it be possible for you to just kind of explain what an annuity is in layman's terms?
Yeah, I mean, insurance is always a transfer of risk, right? You buy car insurance because if you wreck your car, somebody hits your car, you want to pay for a new car out of pocket, right? You transfer some of that risk, you pay them a monthly payment, and if something happens, they help you out. That's good insurance, right? Annuities essentially are insurance for a long time from now. And that becomes a little risky because, as I said, if the insurance company's not around, the deal is off. But a deferred annuity is when you're agreeing to take a big chunk of your nest egg, and it has to be a big chunk or there's not really much of a benefit, hundreds of thousands of dollars typically. You take that chunk, you give it to the insurance company. You are buying an annuity. This isn't like you're putting it in a Vanguard account and letting somebody manage it. You can pull it out whenever you want. You are buying a product. You are giving up that big piece of your nest egg or all of it. in return for them to pay you down the road some fixed amount every month if they're still around. There are egregious fees typically in these. The contracts are dense and hard to follow with lots of cutouts. There are lots of variations. They have indexed annuities, which are tied to index funds, and they give the impression that that's safe somehow, or variable annuities where you can choose your investments. But there's always a gotcha, right? So yeah, you can pick your investments and have some ability to control the performance, but those are capped by something called the participant rate. So if you pick an S&P 500 fund and it shoots up like it did in 2019, 2020, 30%, well, you're capped at 8% and they get the rest. So that's essentially what they are. Now, there are immediate annuities, single premium immediate annuities, which maybe somebody that gets to their later ages, in their 80s, and they're thinking, I don't want to play the market anymore. I just want a guaranteed source of income for the rest of my life. I don't have anybody to leave this couple $100,000 I have left to. I'll just buy the annuity. I'll get my guaranteed paycheck every month and not have to sweat it. That's a simple annuity, right? And it's a very good choice in those circumstances. Just like term life is simple life insurance and a very good choice, whereas whole life or cash life variants are complex and fraught with many of the same problems that the annuities are. So, that's kind of my nutshell spiel on annuities and what they are. There's other things like MYGAs, multi-year guaranteed annuities, you would choose, which are, again, kind of an immediate payment starting. Maybe you are retiring at 60 and you're not going to take Social Security until 64. And you want some income stream to fill those years until your Social Security starts. So you buy a MYGA, turn over some of your money. You've got that cash flow now to be able to retire where otherwise you may not have been able to.
Thank you for explaining that. I mean, I think life insurance, annuities, those are both kind of an area that's talked about a lot, but maybe people just really don't understand what it actually is and if it's right for them. And based on how you explained it, it sounds like it's probably not right for the average investor most of the time, and it would be pretty rare for you to make a recommendation to a client that, hey, you should go out and buy an annuity.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about in this business a lot about risk tolerance, right? And making sure people aren't invested outside their risk tolerance. We wouldn't take an imminent retiree and put them 100% in equities or 90% or 80%, right? And we say that diversity is key. We know that diversity has been proven out over the history of time to win, as instead of picking winners and losers. But if you're going to take a big chunk of your nest egg and turn it over to one insurance company that have to hope doesn't go out of business or sell your annuity off to some shady company in Bermuda, that's the opposite of diversity, right? And the opposite of being conservative and not taking on too much risk and exposing yourself. So that's where I really have a problem with a lot of it.
Yeah, well, again, I appreciate you sharing your perspective and educating our audience on that, because I think it's important for people to know what they're getting themselves into before making such a commitment. So, switching gears a little bit, I'm curious to ask you, how can young people benefit from working with a financial advisor in today's age?
Yeah, great question. And that's really important because people don't really start thinking about it until they clear their agenda, right? Their kids are done with college or they've got the college plans set, and then they start thinking, oh, good, how are we doing for retirement, honey? And oh, wait, we haven't really thought about that. We've been living the dream, living in the moment. We haven't been putting that money away. As you know, with compounding, it doesn't work that way, right? You can't start in your 50s. You don't have that compounding effect. So, and that's one of the great things about FIRE, right? The Financial Independence Retire Early movement. That's attracting a lot of younger people. You should start planning now. Think about what you want the rest of your life to be and put those pieces in place. Set those markers out on the roadmap for the rest of your life all the way through. Maybe you want to take a hiatus and a mini retirement at some point and travel, buy an RV and go check out all the national parks, or a trip around the world when you're young enough to enjoy it. Maybe take your kids and homeschool them like a lot of FIRE people do. That doesn't happen by magic. Even if you want to retire at 65, the traditional retirement, it's on us now, right? We used to have pensions and things like that, but now it's on us, and you've got to do things right. You've got to know the proper timing for, okay, I'm going to contribute to my workplace plan. I'm forced to some extent. Should I be in Roth or traditional? I get that question all the time, right? So And it's not complicated. It's really easy when you just boil it down to the fundamentals and filter out all the noise that young people are hearing on social media, with the crypto and MPI, the newest thing on TikTok, right? Maximum premium indexing, which is just those bad annuities and life insurance policies with new lipstick that's got a cool name. You really should start mapping out that roadmap now and make sure that you're putting the pieces in place while you're enjoying your current life. We're not telling people you can't have a latte, you can't, you have to bring your lunch to work every day. Nonsense, right? Just have a plan. And you can do a plan through somebody like us. There are some good tools out there and some really bad ones that allow you to do the rudimentary planning. But start educating a little bit and learn the fundamentals, factor out the noise, and get the plan in place for the kind of life you want to have. Because if you put the money away now when you're young, you have to put away far less than if you're getting started later. People say, well, I'll do it after my student loans are paid off, or I'll do it after my next raise. And, it's just always kicking the can down the road. And the next thing you know, you find yourself 50 something years old and realizing you're going to have to work a lot longer than you want to. And young people say all the time, I love my job. I love my career. I think I'm going to do it until I'm 80. I'll do it till I die because I love it so much. You get older, things change. The great company you work for, the great boss that you have may disappear in a flash because of an acquisition or a merger. You have health problems. You have kids and grandkids that suddenly you like spending time with more than, dragging yourself to the job every day. It does get old no matter how much you love it.
You're right. Yeah, and I think the earlier you can retire and kind of just have a plan in place, that's really what's most important. And so you mentioned something that I thought was interesting, like the difference in basically serving young people and providing almost a service like financial counseling or just financial planning versus active investment management. Could you talk a little bit about the services that you offer that aren't maybe so intrusive on the client, just financial counseling and planning?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to Jack Bogle and his fundamental principles. Warren Buffett says the same thing. His guy's like the greatest investor in history, right? They all say the same thing. Keep your fees low, keep it simple, and you'll be successful. And I have my own catchphrase that I use. The fewer people and rules between you and your money, the better, right? Don't put your money in with people or things like annuities or whole life plans. We've got to beg for your money if you need it, right? Because those people that you turn that money over, they're only investing it the same way I'd advise you to invest, and they're taking the profits and giving you, kind of the skim off the top, or savings account level of return. So if you really don't know this stuff and you don't have the time or the wherewithal to do all the stuff I did and do all the reading, hire somebody like us, find an advice only, flat fee only advisor that's going to show you the ropes. One thing I do is I use tools that are available to everybody. Most advisors and planners use expensive tools that cost hundreds of dollars a month, and they've got to charge more. I use a tool that's available to anybody, and it's a high fidelity retirement tool. It's better than some of those big dollar ones, in fact. But my goal is to show people how to use it. And for those that have the wherewithal to use this tool on their computer and want to do it, they can sit there and what if their analysis anytime they want. So doing that, I mean, the payoff is huge. If you spend some time with me and I look at how you're investing and what you've got there and make some suggestions on how to change it around, get rid of a lot of the egregious fees you may be paying. It's simply calling up Vanguard or Fidelity or wherever the money is, whether it's your 401k, your IRA, or just your brokerage account, and telling them, okay, here's what I want. I want to simplify this, and here's what I want it to look like. And they make it happen. You can log in and do it yourself. If you hire an investment advisor who we're led to believe, these are the people that know the black magic behind investing, and they never beat the market, by the way, over the history of time. So it's all bull. It's a mirage. You're going to be paying them around 1%. So what does that mean? If you have $500,000, you're paying them $400 something a month just to manage your portfolio. And if they're doing it right, they really should be doing much work. They should be finding out what your risk tolerance is naturally, how much risk can you tolerate, and what your time horizon is and cash needs, and setting up an index-based portfolio, just like Vanguard does in their target date retirement funds, that consists of maybe 3 to 4 different index funds. And that's it. They shouldn't be wheeling and dealing every day, looking at the market, making changes. Oh, I'm going to buy some gold, crypto, commodity. Um, and so what are you paying them for? If it's $500,000 invested is 400 something a month, you're paying them. If it's $1 million, then that doubles. Now you're paying 8 something a month. For what? If you're doing this right, you shouldn't be doing a lot of work. Rebalancing annually, and that's about it. So that I think is really the difference. And people are catching on to this now. And that's why this space that I'm in, this advice only, flat fee only, transparent movement, where you can go right on my website and see exactly what I charge. It's the same for everybody. Because if you come to me and you've got 500,000 and I'm charging you 433 a month, and somebody else comes to me and they've got 5 million, and of course that's 10 times that, right? I'm charging them thousands of dollars a month for doing the same thing. Is that fair? Is that part of the fiduciary standard we're legally obligated to abide by, where you're doing the best thing in the interest of the clients? I don't think it is, to charge somebody more just because they have more money for the same work. So that's what I think is important for people to know, especially young people, because most of the stuff they're bombarded with on social media and in the advertising world is telling them just the opposite of that.
Yeah, it's a tough world to navigate, I think, as a young person, especially if you are on social media. And you mentioned something earlier, this trend on TikTok about MPI. Is that frankly, I'm not on TikTok enough to see these trends, but I'm just curious a little bit more about that, and like how would what advice would you give to a young person who is maybe overwhelmed by things they see on social media and just don't know where to start?
I'd say number one rule, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Uh, if it's something that's not easy to grasp and understand quickly, if it's not simple, you should run, because that's usually the enemy of success, is something that's complicated and hard to understand. Um, with money, that's the way it should be. That's what wins. So that's the key thing, right? Don't be swayed by the influencers out there. A lot of them are, they have an agenda. They're getting paid. The whole MPI thing was started by one of the top influencers on TikTok, with just a massive following, that hooked up with one of the insurance companies to push this thing. And they're telling young people things like, that 401k is stupid. That's old people, grandpa stuff. You're throwing your money away on that. Just put it all into this MPI. You'll do great. And it's crazy, seeing that sort of thing being told to people who, they're led to believe. And for lots of people now, social media is their only source of news. So, and it's the Wild West, right? We don't have that regulation out there that kind of keeps people safe. So
Do you think that there ever will be regulations that come out about promoting certain, products like that and investment vehicles? Or no? Do you expect it to kind of just be the Wild West, like you said?
yeah, I mean, it's like whack-a-mole, right? We try to put the regulations in place, and then social media and things kind of disrupt everything, and we didn't factor that in back when the regulations were formed. It's like this whole new way of communicating with people. So it's always going to be a battle, right? It's the folks that want to take advantage of other people through the course of time, right back to the Stone Ages, are going to find a way. So I would just caution people to, look at things very carefully. Look for other sources of information that verify this is a good thing, and not just on your social media, because we know once you express a like for something, the algorithm is just going to keep feeding you more and more, right? To justify that like. So reach out, pay somebody like me a little bit of money just to get their take on it, maybe a contrarian view, and and inform yourself, right? Don't just jump at something. Don't make snap decisions, especially big money decisions. Think it through. Talk to some other people.
That's great advice. Yeah, great blanket advice for anyone listening. My next question is, what do you think is the most common misconception about financial advisors?
Well, in the fire community, they're very anti-advisor, and for good reason, right? The fire people are frugal, and they don't want to waste a cent, and they know all about that 1% AUM ripoff, and so they're very, very prejudiced against it, and then they should be. Uh, People should know there are people out there like me, that are there to help. And the first company I started, Money Coach Group, where I helped folks that were really bad in debt or trying to dig out from egregious debt that was keeping them from being able to invest. I sold that company to another guy that thinks just like me. So if people are thinking, they've been coerced into this lifestyle because it's the way it is, where they've got big car payments and big student loan payments, and there's just no hope that this is just the way life's going to be, and maybe it'll work out in the end, and they'll get to retire when they're 65. It doesn't have to be like that. There are ways and techniques that aren't the scams you hear about. Oh, we'll get your credit card debt dismissed. Oh, we'll get your IRS debt dismissed. Those are scams. But going to companies that are out there like Money Coach Group will fix that problem. And when you get to the point where you've got the extra money now, the positive cash flow to set up that life you dream about, that's where we come in. So look for those folks that are based on altruism, that are true fiduciary people that are going to work for them and not just to line their own pockets.
It's a great point too. And this is a question I ask a lot of advisors, and I know it's I know there's a standard definition for what a fiduciary is and what it means to be a fiduciary, but in your words, what does it mean to be a fiduciary?
To be a fiduciary means that you're always putting what's best for the client first, and anything else comes secondary, including what's best for you and your business. So for example, I listened to one of my favorite podcasts today, and they were talking about the annuities, right? And whether you would want to put one inside of your investment portfolio or with an investment advisor at that 1%, or just go buy one on the open market. And the guy that was talking on the podcast said, as a fiduciary, he doesn't just push people into the one that would give him the 1% asset management. I'm against the whole thing, as we said earlier anyway, but he said as a fiduciary, he has an obligation, and he's honest about it, and he is an ethical performer. He compares that against what they would pay in a regular annuity in the commission-based world, where it's more competitive, right? They may get a better deal there. And sometimes he has to tell people, yeah, I'd love to have your business, but this other one's a better deal for you. So fiduciary just means, in a word, being honest, right? Being ethical.
I appreciate you sharing that. And, I'm also curious, what podcasts do you find yourself listening to, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, my go-to is the Retirement and IRA show out of Colorado. Those guys are pretty hilarious. And it's the most kind of in-depth. So if you want to get down in the weeds of things like Roth conversions and things like that, they've got a philosophy that follows mine. They're a little more toward the good annuities, the MIGAs and SPIAs, single premium index annuities. Sorry, single premium immediate annuities. But they're good, right? And that's the most informative one. For the normal person out there that's just trying to get their head around this stuff, don't go there. It's too far in the weeds. Optimal Finance Daily is wonderful, right? Because we all say those podcasts for when we're going to get on the treadmill and we have an hour to burn, right? Because some of them get pretty long. Optimum Finance Daily is 10 minutes a day, and it's a quick snapshot on something. It covers FIRE quite a bit. So I think that's a really, really good one. As far as websites, Can I Retire Yet is really good. Chris Mamula and Daryl Kirkpatrick, I think is the name. They're really good. For books, J.L. Collins, The Simple Path to Wealth, one of my favorite books ever in the investing world. It's simple, it's funny, it's not 500 pages long, it's pretty short, and it gets to the point. So that's a very good resource for people that just want to learn the basics and what they need to know about investing. And I'm coming out with a book next month called Kiss Your Money Hello, as opposed to what I heard when I was a kid. My dad was always saying, kiss the money goodbye, right? That covers everything I know, and that'll be out on all the Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and all the book distributors next month, and ebook, paperback, hardcover, and audio book. So, take advantage of your time. If you're commuting, Optimal Finance Daily, even if it's a 10-minute commute, you can listen to that podcast and learn the basics of all these different topics, and it's life-changing stuff. And it's really eye-opening, because right away when you're hearing the realness, the truth of that good advice, you start to realize how all that other stuff you're hearing is wrong, and you know why it's wrong. More importantly, you can pick out the the catches, right? The hooks in those bad investment ideas.
Thank you for sharing all that. That's you gave us a lot of juicy resources to share with our audience, and also congratulations on writing a book and getting ready to publish next month. That's really exciting and a huge achievement. So congratulations.
Thank you.
So switching gears a little bit, Bill, I'd actually like to ask you a little bit more about like some personal questions. So if that's okay with you, I think you're calling in from Pennsylvania. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And are you from Pennsylvania or did you grow up elsewhere?
I originally grew up in New Jersey. I left after high school, went into the military, and I got transferred out. Military, and then I put myself through college on the GI Bill, and started a family young, and got transferred in my first corporate job out to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Hershey area. So I lived in Hershey, in Chocolate Land, USA, for quite a while. In fact, I worked for the Hershey Company, and that was great because they had all these big bowls of the little chocolate products at all the admin stations, and it was quite a battle to try to keep going to the rec center to try to keep the weight off. My kids all worked at Hershey Park and so forth. So, yeah, I'm originally New Jersey, but I live in Pennsylvania now.
Gotcha. And you know, you've mentioned obviously the fire movement a lot, and kind of at the start of this podcast, you mentioned that it's something that even you feel like you're a part of the movement. It's something you've pursued throughout your life, and sure, you're not retired, but you are secure. So I'm just curious, like ways in which planning early has helped you. Has it allowed you to maybe take a vacation? You mentioned homeschooling your children, for example, not yours, but that's an option that's available to those who start saving early, and just have that financial independence. So I don't know if there's an example from your real life that you could share where you've had more financial independence than the guy who's working at Hershey still, and you went out on your own, you started your own firm, and now you have more freedom to do what you want. So is there anything you could share along those lines?
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. So we said that FIRE stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. Most advocates will tell you it's more about that first part. In fact, they shortened it to just FI. Um, they don't necessarily want to quit working and sit around in their Barca lounger, when they're 35, 40 years old or whatever. Their goal is to never have to go to a job that they despise, to live life on their own terms. So the financial independence part is the key. And it feels a lot different going to a job when you don't have to be there, right? If there's a change in management or a takeover or something and it becomes a nightmare, you can walk right out the door. And because I had this focus on personal finances my whole life, I was able to do that, right? My job got to the point where I didn't really want to be there, and I wanted to do something else, and I was still pretty young. I was in my late 30s, and I just gave them my notice and I walked out and I started my own company at that point, right? And I ran that for quite a while at home back, in the beginning of the computer days when it was more feasible. And that was great. So I was home with my kids every day. We went to the pool. I'd go to work at night, take them to the pool during the day. And I was doing it right before FIRE was a thing. And, eventually I got lured back into the corporate world with an offer I couldn't refuse from IBM. And I went back there, but then, I was done with that career at a pretty early age, still in my 50s, mid 50s, and able to leave and do this, which was my dream. And so really I am doing FIRE. What does FIRE mean? It means living life on your terms every day. I do this because I love it. I can't wait to get up the next day and do more of this. And that's what I mean when I say that FIRE is really just the first part, FI. It doesn't mean just quit work. As I said, some folks, the FIRE people, will start a blog or some kind of side hustle income, and they go live in Thailand or Costa Rica, and they're supporting their blog and making income through affiliate links and things like that. Unfortunately, sometimes credit card affiliate links don't do that. Or they're traveling around in RVs, homeschooling their kids. So that's really what it's all about. And that is not some pie in the sky thing. There are a lot of people living that lifestyle. And even for somebody that's mired in debt right now, that's made all those mistakes, they've got, I've seen couples, young couples, they each have a $700 car payment on top of the student loans, and their paycheck is just cut in pieces, and just even or negative cash flow. And then they thought they were fine, they're young, healthy, and then COVID hit, and one of them gets sick, both of them get sick, they get laid off, and disaster ensues, right? You can dig your way out of that kind of mess pretty quickly if you're doing the right things. And I cover that in the Kiss Your Money Hello book. Money Coach Group does that for people if they need the mentoring. But it's not that hard to completely change and get out of that life really within a couple of years. And you see people like Dave Ramsey out there, right? I used to listen to his show pretty religiously. In fact, I'm certified as a Ramsey Master Financial Coach back when I was doing more financial counseling work. And the guys like him or hate him, and a lot of people don't like the guy, but he's changed countless lives by taking people that were like I did, when I had Money Coach Group, that were facing imminent foreclosure. They had notices being posted up on their door. They already had the cars repoed. They just thought all hope was lost. And bankruptcy isn't always a solution. In fact, it rarely is, because if you have a job, you're not going to get Chapter 7 where they just wipe a bunch of your debt out. You can't excuse the student loans and things like that, but IRS debt you can't excuse. You're going to get put on a payment schedule. And, if you're doing a side hustle, something you love, to bring that extra income, it's so easy these days, right? With technology, even from home. You got kids at home, great. You can make that money when they're napping or when they're crashed out for the night or whatever. There's so many ways to cut back on your expenses. We're being taken to the cleaners on a lot of stuff. Almost everybody I see is paying multiples of what they should be paying for their cell phone service and their internet service and countless other things, right? Cleaning up all those crazy subscriptions that you don't use, and groceries. There's so many ways that completely end that life within 2 years, and now your whole life is so much less stressful, and you're on the path to all the goals that you dreamed about but never thought were possible.
You're right, and I think, when people learn about it, that's really like the biggest first step, because once you learn about the possibility of financial independence and retiring early, you just get enamored by it. It's something I was fortunate to learn about. I think I was maybe 19 when I first discovered the FIRE movement, and I think I first discovered it on Reddit. So I'm kind of curious about your relationship to the movement, because like you said, you were pursuing this before it was really a movement, before it had a subreddit. So how did you learn about it? And also, do you participate in any of the subreddits around this topic? I have to ask. I'm curious.
Yeah, I spoke to a new client just the other day who didn't know about FIRE, but he said, "That's what I'm doing." He said, "I'm glad to know it's a thing," and that's when it came about, I knew immediately that's the way I had been living, and I was glad that it had a cool name and was inspiring a movement, so that so many people didn't end up living a stressful life because of their money. Yeah, it's what a lot of people come to, is the fact that this is the way. And even if you're sitting there and you feel like you're drowning, reading about FIRE is probably just like reading about leprechauns and unicorns. Oh, that's cool, but I'll never get to do that. You can do it, right? That's the thing. So
you're right.
I'm glad to see
it's for anyone. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing ways in which it's impacted your life, your clients' lives too. And the next question, again, a little personal. Outside of work and family, how do you spend your free time? What are some of your hobbies?
I like to, I was a dive trainer, a dive master for scuba at the local facility here. Unfortunately, they shut down, so I'm not doing as much of that. But I like diving. I like being underwater. I like going to concerts. I'm a closet musician, not very good, but I play for my own enjoyment and relaxation. I love to write, so I'm just finishing up this labor of my life with the book, where I'm putting essentially everything I know into print, because I want it to outlast me. My wife and I like to go out to eat and things like that. So those are the sorts of things, life of leisure. And I like the summer a lot better than the winter. I'm not really a cold weather person. I never was. So I love the beach and getting out there. We just took, couple of weeks off and went down to Siesta Key, and I wrote a blog about that. And I recommend people read it, because when I was there, I saw a lot of young people, and they were not temp vacationers. They were set up and entrenched there. And I said, "Oh, you guys are young." And they had construction trucks, like a big pickup with paving on it, or whatever, landscaping. And I said, "Oh, what are you doing down here?" "Well, we take the whole summer off. I'm sorry, the whole winter off, because we don't like the cold, and business is slow anyway." And I said, "Oh, I place, like I don't know anything. How can you afford to do that?" And it's always the same answer, right? It's doing this. It's getting control of your finances.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty powerful. And for you to do, exploratory interviews like that while you're on vacation, I love that. Just to ask people, how they're making it happen. So you mentioned concerts. What's the last concert you've been to?
Uh, there's so many. I went to see Doobie Brothers not too long ago. I mean, in this area where I am, it's a great area for music. They have Music Fest in Bethlehem, which is where I live, and it's the biggest free outdoor festival in the world, actually, right? So it's just an incredible festival where you're just wandering through all of Bethlehem, north side, south side, and there's just music everywhere. They have open air festivals at the Levitt Pavilion over by the Steel Stacks area and Arts Quest area. So my wife and I, those are free as well. We're always on the frugal side of things. Although when somebody big comes along, we're in a position where if we want to sit in the front row and buy those VIP tickets, we can. And that's another big thing about fire, right? Too many people are spending all this money on stuff they really don't enjoy as much, a $700 car payment to get to the job that you hate. And they find themselves sitting in front of the TV watching the Phillies or Eagles or whatever their favorite team is. If you change your life, you can go to those things and sit in the VIP seats and enjoy the great outdoors and be there in the electricity of the moment, right? So, yeah, I mean, for me, the thing is that a lot of the bands that I like, obviously, are starting to fade away. They're the guys that were 10, 20 years older than me. So I'm losing my opportunity. But I listen to a lot of new music as well. I like younger bands, a lot of them around the Americana and, Fish and Tedeschi Trucks and kind of jam bands, Fish,
Yeah,
that type of thing.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's so cool. Have you seen Fish live?
No, they're one of the few that I haven't seen yet. So they're still kind of on my list here. I'm definitely anxious to see them. I go back to the days of the Grateful Dead and Led Zeppelin and acts like that. I've got this giant box of concert tickets that go all the way back to the 70s. Someday I'm going to organize. Hopefully the print hasn't faded out on them, so I can try to regain some of those memories of my youth going to those shows. But yeah, I'm looking forward to a Fish show. I'd like to go. Trey Anastasio is a great musician.
Yeah, super talented.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, it's just like to get a little bit more info on, what you like to do personally. So I appreciate you sharing that. I also have to ask, on the wall behind you, could you just I'm sure there's a story with this like Native American looking um garment. Could you elaborate a little bit on what that is?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Old West and specifically Native American culture and history. One of the most impactful books I've ever read is "Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee." So I like to help those causes and that community quite a bit. That's why that particular painting, but it has a financial story to it as well. Um, when I was, young and dirt poor, pretty much, going to college, working a couple jobs to get myself through. I got married and started having kids early, and we were relying on furniture hand-me-downs from everybody. The kind you put the book under the leg, and the fold-out bed doesn't work anymore, and that sort of thing. And we got our first place, and the first set of furniture, new furniture we were able to buy was from Montgomery Ward's, which is a chain that's kind of like Walmart, right? Discount stuff, but they're out of business now. And it was kind of green and had a Native American kind of Southwest type of design on it. And pretty ugly, in fact, but it was on sale and cheap, right? And there I was, a young guy, probably still in my 20s, and talking to the poor salesperson, as I always did, negotiate. Oh, I see you got this floor model here. God knows who's been sitting on this thing. I don't know what kind of bugs are crawling around. I'll take it off your hands. And this poor guy, and you don't even want to see me get into a car dealership, because this is, these people, I've had salesmen retire after dealing with me, but this is, back in the day, and I say negotiate everything. I got the furniture for half price, and that picture was up on the wall, and I said, well, you got to throw the picture in, the painting. It's actually a painting. I said, he said, no, that's not part of this, furniture. I said, but it's green. And, I said, all right, well, we're leaving. We're out of here. We're going to go down the street and go to Kmart or whatever. And he ended up giving me the painting. So it's part of my financial legacy, I guess.
Wow, that is an amazing story. Yeah, and it's, of course, stuck with you
But
and still has. Go ahead.
the furniture, however, went out to the dumpster probably within years because it was of such poor quality. So maybe he got the last laugh. I don't know, but I got the money I paid was worth the painting. So
Wow, very cool. Well, thank you so much, Bill, for joining the podcast. The last question I have: what advice would you tell your 20-year-old self?
uh, the advice I tell my 20-year-old self is just be confident. Everything will work out if you're doing the right things. I was kind of paving my own path. Uh, Listen to the folks that have been down that road before you. I think that's the main thing. It's so interesting that our species, our humanity, through the course of time, right? We're young and we have our parents and grandparents telling us things and trying to give us advice. And what do we say? The same thing I said. Yeah, but things are different now. That was back in your day. This logic doesn't apply anymore, right? And we thought we knew everything. And I think the most important logic would be pay more attention and put more stock in what the folks who have been down the road before you are telling you. I think that is the most critical thing. Of course, no, I'm biased because I'm a person of a certain age, right? I don't know if it'll ever change, but I think it's important. I do see it more. I do see it more. I think younger people today are more smarter and more open to that type of thing. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing that too. We love to learn more about things that you've learned, and I think you're right. A lot of younger people are conscious of, knowing that knowing they have to save, knowing they have to budget and invest, but having sound advice from a professional like you or another advisor can also be really helpful. So thank you for sharing that, Bill. And
Yeah, and don't tell them they don't have to, you know, scrimp and be frugal and not enjoy their life. This is about happiness, right? You don't want to make yourself miserable today so that you can have a great tomorrow. You don't know if you're going to have it tomorrow. We already know that after COVID, right? Young people died too. I know some. Find that right balance, right? So get yourself to the point where you can take care of those milestones in your life, but still have nice things today and have a good life, because every day is precious and we never know when we have a second one coming up.
right, that's inspiring. Good words to end on. So, where can people find you? Is there anything you want to plug? Of course, you have your book coming out. We'll put your website in the description below. But is there anything else you'd like to plug on the podcast?
No, just do the right thing, right? Find those people that are out there, whether it's me or somebody else, that'll put you on the right path. I'm at emancipare.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Sapari Fire, Facebook, same thing. I don't really do a lot of social media other than really Twitter. Um, I'm on some of the different investment forums and things online. You can find me just by Googling. But yeah, I'm looking forward to helping more people. We're kind of a boutique concierge type operation, so we can only take on so many. But every year we have people that, for lack of a better word, graduate. And again, our job is to work ourselves out of a job. It's to teach people to do this stuff on their own, so they're not spending the rest of their life lining everybody else's pockets. Right. So when we teach people that they know what they need to know, sometimes they move on, and we love that. And we always touch base with them and check in to see how they're doing down the line. So
That's great. And again, Bill, thank you so much for joining the podcast. Really enjoy getting to know you.
all right, it's been great. I love talking to you.